Hello and welcome back to Remake Hot Take podcast, the podcast where we play studio executives pitching remake ideas of our favorite and new media. I'm Marriya Schwarz.
And I'm Brooke Rees. And this episode, we are switching it up a little bit. We are doing an end of the year extravaganza, taking a look at all of our favorite and sometimes least favorite movies that were new releases in 2023.
I think calling it an extravaganza is getting people's hopes up and
Yeah.
I have performance anxiety now.
Okay. Let's see. The 2023 Remake Hot Take year in review spectacular
episode.
Mediocre episode. Is that better? Just bring them down.
Bring them down first. Yeah.
Bring them down and then we shine when we actually have the episode. But yes, this will be a little bit different from our normal content. But if you're interested in what we thought was the best and worst of the year, keep listening.
Ooh.
I have a huge caveat for this entire episode. So if you leave hate comments on TikTok or on YouTube, that's justified because my top 10 is a little bit interesting, and I think I'm having like a imposter syndrome because number one, I don't use Letterboxd because I don't know, I just find it very weird to like watch a movie and then like instantly document it into something. And if I don't do that, then I like can't keep track of anything. So number one, not even sure if I saw more movies in 2023. I was going back through past podcast like clips and trying to see in our, what we watched that week if there was anything that was from this year. So that's one caveat is I don't know. I don't know what I saw. Number two is that I don't know. I just haven't gotten to see as many new movies as I would have liked this year. So my list is honestly pretty short. I did a lot of I didn't have a ton of free time, and the ones that I did, it was spent pretty much only watching stuff with my roommate, which we watched like a pretty select amount of genres. So most of them were horror movies that I saw that were new releases. So that all being said, I
keep
think
in mind that these aren't the top 10 of the year overall. This is just what we saw. Like, I would have loved to see Killers of the Flower Moon, but I just don't get to the theater all that much. So I think for both of us, it's like things that we were able to see in theaters and a lot of streaming, which is not always where like the big hitters are.
Yeah, honestly, it's mostly streaming, which is like, it's great for movies that they're back in the theater and people are watching them, and it's not direct to, not direct to DVD, but like they say, but direct to streaming anymore, because I know that's like a whole entire separate issue. So it's good that things are back in the theater and having their 2 to 3 month run, and then 6 months down the road are being released onto streaming platforms. But yes, it does kind of severely limit our options here. But all that being said, I have only watched approximately 23 movies that were new releases in 2023. So coming up with a top 10 list from there, a bit of slim pickings, but I will list them out now. My number 10 is going to be one that I just watched recently. It's May December, which is kind of a loose take on the Mary Kay Letourneau story. I told Marriya like not to bother with it, which I didn't think it was like amazing, but it was amazing enough compared to the other 13 on my list that didn't make it in there. So there's May December, and then the Goosebumps new series is number 9. Number 8 is Queen Charlotte, which we did a podcast episode on, the mini series. Number 7 is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Number 6 is No Hard Feelings. Number 5 is Knock at the Cabin Door. Number 4 is the new Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Number 3 is Quiz Lady. Number 2, Asteroid City. And number 1, Barbie, which is why I'm all dressed up in the Barbie gear and have my Barbie dream house background. So that was my list. Marriya, what's your list?
So number 10, I have Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour. Number 9, I have Barbie. Number 8, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Number 7 is Asteroid City. Number 6, A Man Called Otto, which some may say is a 2022 release, but it was January 2023 in the USA, so we're counting it. Number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 4, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Number 3, The Crowded Room limited series. Number 2, Missing. And number 1, the Lessons in Chemistry miniseries.
Nice.
So are you ready to get into it?
I am. Let's start off with our number 10s. So for number 10, May December, like I had said, it's a kind of loose, historically accurate true story based on a true story movie about Mary Kay Letourneau, who I believe was like a teacher or something.
Yeah, that's why I saw like the first 5 minutes and then I looked at the Wikipedia page, and as a teacher, I was like, maybe no.
You're like, no, I'm gonna skip this one.
Because I was watching it in office hours and I was like, no.
You're like, I do not want to give the wrong impression. Yeah, and it's a really fascinating story. Honestly, it's like I do really like true crime stuff, true crime podcasts and documentaries and stuff. This is definitely not that, very different vibes. And with the Mary Kay Letourneau story, I don't know too much about it. Honestly, I think this was the first time that I had heard about it. And I did like a quick Google search and was looking into that case. And you know, people have mixed reviews about this movie. I think for some reason it's being listed under the comedy category at the Oscars.
Did not seem like a comedy. I think sometimes they do comedy as like it ends in a happy ending, which I don't even know if it ends in a happy ending. I think it's maybe that everyone doesn't die.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I see like people on my film Twitter talking about like category fraud, and sometimes I guess things get listed under different categories so they have a better shot versus listing it under like drama or something. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of all that, but you know, I saw some people saying that they don't like it because it's kind of like glorifying this relationship, which was illegal, and Mary Kay Letourneau is a pedophile, and we don't want to like glamorize people like that. But then I see other people on the other side of things, which is kind of where I am, which I thought that this movie did a really good job of you know, exploring like what we do to like male victims of like pedophilia. And I feel like every single time I see some sort of like sensationalized news story that like gets viral about like, I guess specifically an instance where it is like a female teacher sleeping with a student, you know, in high school or whatever the age category is, like so many times I feel like the narrative, instead of it being like pedophile, you know, goes to jail, which it should be, it's like, oh, there's some sort of like mystery to male victims like scoring with their teacher or something along those lines. And I think if you're gonna like say, oh, I want to do a movie about the Mary Kay Letourneau story, I thought that this was a really good way to do it. And it's really interesting. It's using Natalie Portman as an actress who, she's like kind of a shitty actress, and she's going to stay with the family because she's going to star as Mary Kay Letourneau in like an upcoming movie, and she wants to kind of do like a character study and get to know like the inner workings of her relationship and her family and all that stuff. And Natalie Portman's character is so weird in this movie, and she's like trying to get all of her mannerisms down and trying to kind of like become her, and she doesn't even like seem like that good of an actress. So I guess there's like some comedic parts in that, but for the most part I thought it was like a really well done portrayal of, you know, what the reality is for a male victim and what his life looks like going forward, because it does spend a lot of time going over his kind of emotional state. And I believe it's like when he reaches the age, which is around like 36, that she was when she first like had sex with him, slept with him when he was like 12 or something, 11 or 12. I think we have this like reckoning moment with him where he realizes now that he is the age at which he was abused. He realizes how horrible that is, and now that they have children of their own. So yeah, I thought it did a really good job of that. I thought it was a really interesting take on it. Um, and it did end up making my top 10 again, with the caveat that I only saw 23 movies from 2023. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and it's on Netflix. So again, easily accessible via streaming platform if you want to take a look, and also very good message. Like I said, there seems to be this rhetoric constantly. And even I know that there was you know, it's specifically with the teacher stuff. We had a couple of like scandals in our hometown. And I remember there was like, maybe it was like the driver's ed teacher or something. I did not take driver's ed. And I think it was because the one and only driver's ed teacher like was abusing a student, slept with a student, and then was fired promptly. And so like the coverage around female victims who are abused by an older male is always like, this is awful, as it should be. Like, this is awful. They need to go to jail. And then like within 2 years or something, someone from a neighboring school, I believe it was like a younger female teacher, slept with a male high school student. And again, it's like all the comments on Facebook from these like 50-year-old men are like, this would have been my dream in like in high school. And that's like the constant rhetoric that I see. So I was really happy to see a fresh perspective on, you know, what is the reality. And I thought it was really good for what it was. So on
There's
Netflix.
just like such a weird thing around like male
It is.
virginity versus like we always often talk about like female virginity and like the sacredness of that and like the sense of innocence, but there is like something about like male virginity of like you losing it young for some reason has so much credit versus like the slut shaming that happens as a female, and like both are awful.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. There is so much I don't know, like we really need to have in the US at least like a mind shift there, because I know like even in like psychology classes that I would take, there were like studies about how males perceive females at different age and what they find like most attractive and everything. And it was something like young kids like age 10 to 20 all want like an older woman or something, and then after that age they all like fetishize like younger women. So
Leonardo DiCaprio
basically, yeah,
was
and
the main test subject.
yeah, he was like, hey Leo, it's like basically they always want to be with a 25-year-old. And it's like from age 10 to 20 they want a 25-year-old, from 20 to 25 they want an age appropriate woman, and then 25 plus they're always looking for that 25-year-old. So
That's
yeah,
a great
there's
transition into mine.
oh okay,
Mine.
perfect.
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that, Brooke. That sounds like a really funny movie. Um,
Comedy gold.
so I picked for my number 10 Taylor Swift The Eras Tour, and I say that that's a good segue because she has that 10-minute All Too Well song where she talks about Jake Gyllenhaal and like I age while your girlfriends like stay my age or whatever. Um so I put it as my number 10. It's not like it was like the best movie of the year, but it did make me like I came into this like I only really saw it for my sister. Um and I did come out of it as a Swiftie, I think. So that kind of movie has to has to score something. Because I think I was like nicely brainwashed, like very politely, I feel like. Um, and I think we also have to give her some credit because I think now the movie's on streaming and they've like added songs back. So that's like the theater experience and the streaming experience are like slightly different, which is like clever. But now I feel like I need to see them. And I think it was nice for people who hadn't gotten to see the Eras tour because it was just like frankly so expensive. I do say that like seeing it in theaters, like I get that it's 1989. I get that it's like 13 is her lucky number, but all the tickets were like 1989. They like
Oh,
had to be
really?
1989. And it's like it doesn't have to be. It really does not have to be. And I do miss like $10 movies or whatever. And this is off topic, but like I went to her like Black Friday sale and they're like 75% off. But then it was just like everything was 1989. Or like so it was just like it wasn't really a sale. And I just think we need to leave these numbers in the past. But movie wise, it was a fun like concert experience. She did say that like this is your concert, so act like you're at a concert. And some people did take that a little bit too far. But I do think it was like a fun experience to go see if you had not gotten that experience. And I did get this cup, um, not at the movie, but yesterday when I saw Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, this is the cup that they gave out for regular drinks.
That's funny.
So I
They were
got an
like,
Eras Tour cup a couple months late. Um,
I like to think
but
that one very confused theater employee was like, they're singing in this one, right? And they were like,
yeah.
is it Taylor Swift? They're like, does she get reaped for the Hunger Games? And they were like, it'll work. Just hand him the Diet Coke.
Yeah. But I mean it was a cultural experience and they made what was it? Was it Friday the 13th? Something move. She like had that amount of power that she made like a big horror movie franchise move their release date because they were too afraid of her. So because of that, it makes my top 10.
Nice.
Would you like to go to your number 9?
Yes. Okay. My number 9, I'm cheating a little bit because I said it was the revitalized Goosebumps series. I only saw the first half batch that they released because I think they released like the first 5 or 6 episodes, and then it was kind of like a Netflix thing where it was like part 1, part 2. And that was like around Halloween, and then I don't even know if slash when they released the rest of it. I'm assuming they did. But I'm going based off of that alone. So if the remaining like 4 episodes absolutely ruined it, just let me be in ignorant bliss here because I don't want to know. But
Did what you saw give you goosebumps?
I don't know if it gave me goosebumps. It was just really, really good. I wouldn't say it was
Yeah.
particularly scary at all. And I've never even been like a fan of like other Goosebumps. I did read the books like occasionally as a kid. They were never my favorite, but you know, I know they have like I think the old series and then there's like a couple different Goosebumps movies, I'm pretty sure. Haven't really seen any of those, but this new series that was on, oh gosh, was it like Hulu or something? I can't remember. But it was on a streaming platform and I watched it around Halloween time and it was just really good storytelling. Like shout out to
Hmm.
those writers. I really love just kind of like lighthearted, spooky, kind of like mystical figures and stuff like that. It was really good. And it ended on a cliffhanger. So again, I don't know what it ended on a cliffhanger for me specifically because I never watched the next batch of stuff that they released, but it was going through this like one kid who they thought had like committed suicide or something and his house burned down, but it actually turns out that like these bullies from school like accidentally lit his house on fire when I think they were like sending firecrackers in there or something, and the whole thing just went up in flames. And it's like all of these different items that he owned that then become like cursed, and the group of kids that were the bullies, it's now the next generation, all of their kids, and all of them are getting these items one way or another from the old house. And it's goes through and how each one of them is haunted. So
Hmm.
I would really recommend it if you're just kind of looking for like lighthearted spooky material. It was really good and I have more to see. I'll
Yeah.
I'll report back if the last episodes ruined it or if it made it like bump up a couple spots in my top 10.
I have not seen that. How does it compare to like The Haunting of Hill House from like what you've seen? What's the
Oh,
only
I
other like
mean,
horror?
yeah, I've actually watched a couple different horror series this year. Definitely like way more lighthearted, way more goofy. I think Haunting of Hill House is like a masterpiece in terms of like screenwriting. And I
Mhm.
feel like it was just so good in the way that it weaves together all these different timelines. Goosebumps does have like different timelines that it's working with. It does show flashbacks of the like original kid that was murdered and the parents. And it actually alternates. It's a series that alternates perspectives between each one of the kid for a different episode. So we follow one of them for one whole episode as they're haunted by whatever object it is, and then they kind of work together as a team. It honestly has like, I would say like off-brand Stranger Things vibes combined
Hmm.
with like, I don't know, combined kind of with a Hill House or something of that more horror-esque. But yeah, honestly, it has Stranger Things vibes. Definitely nowhere near like the production level of Stranger Things, but I really liked it. I hope they make more.
Well, they already did.
They did. I mean, I hope they make even more for me to enjoy. But I don't know if they will because I think it was a limited series.
Hmm.
Um we'll see. I hope they make more. Brooke, they literally they are waiting there for you to enjoy. Oh boy, I think I have like a diagnosable problem. I'm really bad at finishing things. I think it's like, is it Timmy Turner? There's, or no, Jimmy Neutron. I think there's a Jimmy Neutron villain, whose like whole shtick is that he like can never finish a task. And every single time I don't finish a TV series, I think about that Jimmy Neutron villain. He's like embedded in my mind.
Huh.
But yeah,
Maybe he won.
he won what?
I don't know.
He won the he
The
won
war
my
in your brain.
he
Yeah.
won the war in my brain, and he was like, you know what you should do? Never finish anything.
Hmm.
Don't finish series. All right, what's your number 9, Marya?
My number 9 we won't get too far into because I know you want to discuss it later, but I had Barbie because I think Barbie obviously I don't think I need to give like an introduction of what what Barbie is. Um, but I think it's like it was a cultural phenomenon. I think I'm also like very skewed by like theatrical experiences that I had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think like the costume designs, all of like the visual elements were all good. I didn't think that the story lined up to exactly what I was hoping for. Like it kind of hurts my brain a little bit, if I think about it too much. Um, but I think for like what it was really good. And I think seeing it again and like coming into it with like more of like this isn't gonna make any sense to me, but that's okay because that's fun. Helped me. But and I think I like could watch it again, but um it didn't fully live up to the hype that I necessarily wanted, which is why it's my number 9, but it still makes the top 10. Because I did think it was fun once I stop thinking about like I don't know like how time and space work in the Barbie universe and if she's okay and does she have a vagina now and why was it all about Ken? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, let's dive into it more when I talk about it for number
Hmm.
1, because I have a couple questions, I think. Because I was out of commission when we did the Barbie pod, so I wasn't on it. I haven't listened to it either, so I don't even know quite what yours and Maggie's takes were, but yes, let's dive into that a little bit more. My number 8, we won't dive too heavily into either because we did the whole podcast on it, but is the Queen Charlotte Bridgerton mini
Mm-hmm.
series. So I just really liked that. Again, it was, I think a lot of these movies, since I did have such a limited amount that I saw in 2023, like you said, are going to be shaped by number 1, like movies that I saw in theaters are always going to rank higher than movies that I saw on streaming platforms for like the bare fact that I had enough energy to want to see them in a theater. So that means that I already had like a bias towards really being interested in this film. Number three, such a better viewing experience. You have the huge, like, I live in a small apartment. I have like a 10-year-old TV. It's basically like watching it on an iPhone. Like it's 10 feet away and it's a small screen.
Yeah,
And
like see, like with Barbie, I'm like, did I like the movie or did I like that I got like a fun little fruity drink with a free cup and a poster?
yeah, which I think is part of it. And that's why they do want you to see movies in theaters. Like every director is going to tell you that they like cry into a little bucket every time they hear that someone watched their movie on an iPhone. It's meant for being viewed in a theater. It's just, sometimes it's not accessible for everyone with time and money, especially like you said, theater tickets nowadays are so expensive. And I think for myself, it's like such a rare little treat that I have time to go to a movie theater that I really like go all out and I go to like a nice one that serves dinner. So it's like you get dinner, you get the tickets. It's literally like a $70 affair
Yeah. Well,
every
that's why
time.
if you ever watch any of our short films from Morton Third Floor, they are best viewed in the comfort of your own home in a dark room where the laptop is the only source of light and maybe you can eat a bag of chips. That's how they're meant to be seen.
Yeah, we want you to only be paying like 50% of your attention
Yeah.
to our short films. You're just half asleep on the couch. But yeah, Queen Charlotte, again, tying into like my experiences being intricately linked with my ranking here. I watched it with my mom when I was back home for a couple days, and it was just really nice. I never get to really watch anything new with my mom. And we like never watch new series together because we usually don't have the time to get through a whole thing. But because it was like a limited series, it was just like, I don't know, 10 episodes or less or something. And we
And
both
you're gonna be spending time with her now, so Goosebumps part two?
I know. Well, but I like it feels like sacrilegious to watch a Halloween movie
Hmm.
in Christmas.
You could watch the Santa Clauses.
I know. I truly need to get through the Christmas season and then I'm back open to watching new stuff. And I do have like a whole list of stuff that I still want to see. That's there have been a ton of new releases just within the past couple weeks that I haven't
Mhm.
gotten to see yet. So hopefully, but yeah, I really liked Queen Charlotte. I got to watch it with my mom. It was like one of the few things that like made me like cry this year from new releases. Like I thought it was very emotional and just really beautiful at times. And I'm not saying that it's the best show ever written or performed. I just had a good experience with it, so it makes my number 8. What about
Nice.
you?
I picked Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Great viewing experience as well. I watched it in the dark of my room, um, under the covers. So it's a very similar thing. And I don't know. I mean, I think I do like the Indiana Jones series, and we've talked about Indiana Jones before, not necessarily this specific one. But I did like Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Is that
Mhm.
I do always get Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Phoebe Bridgers mixed up, and someone needs to change their name, and you can decide that among yourselves. But I did think that she was like a fun addition. I didn't fully expect I didn't know what to expect because I didn't think that she added all that much like in like the Han Solo movie and stuff, and like she's kind of popping up in all these franchises. But I did like her in this one. She plays Indiana Jones's like goddaughter, um, who like he like walked out on and now she's a criminal with gambling debt. But it did play like it's nice to see um an anti-Nazi movie in 2023. I think you wouldn't think that it's needed, but I it is. And I think it did have like some fun nods to like the original, um and I didn't think that the AI was awful at like de-aging Harrison Ford. I thought it was actually pretty successful. And I learned that there's a guy whose like whole thing is like playing the de-aged version of Harrison Ford. Like I guess he's like done it like multiple times. That's just like his whole job. And like he doesn't even like really look like Harrison Ford. I don't know why they picked him. He also played, I think, the younger version of his character in The Age of Adeline when he was like actually
Mm.
allowed to have his own face. And I guess they're like, okay, you're the one for the part. But I did like it. I thought, I mean, there was no reason that we needed Indiana Jones to do like a time travel movie. But I thought it was fun, and it has like a lot of the heart that the original Indiana Jones movies had about like family and Indy. I think it was also, I don't know, I talked about this last time when I talked about this movie, is like it was the best representation of what it's like to be an underappreciated professor and no one's paying attention
Mm-hmm.
to you in the classroom, except he gets to retire. So a girl can dream. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And it's like one where, I'm gonna show my mom. So yeah. What are we on? 7?
Yep, number 7. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Mm.
Which viewing experience again was on a plane. So not the ideal situation to be in for viewing, but all that being said, I did really like it. I thought it was a great performance from Rachel McAdams. She's an excellent actor. Like just excellent.
I think, it's like, okay, yeah, she was like in Spotlight and this and The Notebook, whatever. But when you add in like Regina George into
Mhm.
the mix, it's like, holy shit, girl has range. Um,
Didn't she
so
do
yeah,
like Regina George and The Notebook in the same year or something?
I
Or
think
like
so. Yeah,
back to
something like
back?
that.
Yeah, she's just wonderful. And I thought it
And dated
was
Ryan Gosling, so that's range.
a lucky woman. Yeah, I just love her as an actress. I think she's really good. I think
Yeah, and I
she
don't know if I've seen her as a mom before, but I thought,
that's what I was gonna say. I was like, she's now making the subtle transition in her age in Hollywood years, into mom roles. I think it's funny that the internet like exploded when they realized that Melissa Joan Hart was playing like a grandmother in a recent holiday movie. And they were like, "What do you mean she's a teenage witch?" They were like, "If she's not a teenager anymore, like how old am I?" And I think some elder millennials were having some difficult conversations with their with their dermatologist about some skincare rejuvenating routines they should be implementing. But yeah, so I think it's funny when we see that kind of transition. She's only 47 years old, which she is not old enough to be playing a grandmother unless they all had children very young.
Hmm.
But yeah, I am seeing this transition for Rachel McAdams. And I thought it was really interesting, like obviously this is a movie about religion and a young girl exploring both a coming of age story, but also kind of a religious exploration and how religion has changed her family and her family's dynamics. And it's not something that I think about like too much since my family is never religious, and it's not something that I'm like personally exploring at this moment, but I know that, in college, I met a lot of people that were religious through various like clubs that I was a part of. And I do always find it to be an extremely interesting topic. I mean, there are people who, majored in religious studies and everything. And I always find it very interesting to see those dynamics there. And, um, like prejudice between the different grandparents, and how they've completely fallen out with Rachel McAdams. And I think the most powerful scene that often gets like clipped and put around social media is when she's trying to, explain to her innocent daughter about why her parents don't even want to see her anymore, and she like has like
Mhm.
one tear shed. And I thought it was just such a beautiful, it felt like a very like real moment from her. So
Yeah.
great performance. I really liked it. Number 7. What about you?
Nice. I picked Asteroid City, which I don't know. Am I like a Wes Anderson girly now? I was gonna watch, what was it, like something Life of Henry Sugar or something, and then I opened it and I was like, oh, it's a short film, and then I was like, oh, I have so much time to watch this, and then I didn't. But I don't know. I watched it like a few times afterwards, and like I think I chose my top 10 based on like things that I thought about after, like things that I like just watched and then didn't really care about, didn't really make my top 10, but this one I definitely like kept thinking about, especially that part with Margot Robbie like on the
Mhm.
balcony of like um and I told him that he was like different or something, and it's like I always get the shot or whatever. I don't know. There were just like something about it and like the music that I just really enjoyed, um probably more than other Wes Anderson movies. I usually find them to be a little bit too pretentious, but I thought this was like, I don't know, there was like some part of it where it was like Wes Anderson making fun of Wes Anderson a little bit. And I think I maybe felt like that was a little bit more approachable. I also just like Maya Hawke and Scarlett Johansson, so maybe that was it. I don't know. Um, Good to have that representation from Scarlett Johansson as part of the Asian community. Um, so maybe that was it. But yeah, I don't know. I can't put into I know I was really like I hate Asteroid City, but it is definitely a top 10. I felt like it was well done compared to like a lot of other things that I saw and were available for streaming at least from this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that more when we get to yours. Number 6.
Number 6 for me was No Hard Feelings, which I know you weren't the biggest fan of. But I just love to see Jennifer Lawrence in a comedic role. And I was so glad to see her back on the big screen. Again, this was one that I went to theaters to see, so I was very excited for it. And nothing compares to the viewing experience in theaters. So I really liked it. I'm a big fan of like lighthearted rom-coms, lighthearted comedy movies. And I think that she's a great actress. I really liked it. And um yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like anything that was deeply profound or interesting in any ways, but it was just fun. And I was like, hell yeah. Glad to see you back, Jen. Like
Well,
an old
I think it's
friend.
fun that both that one and May December are on the list. Because they're somewhat similar.
Yeah.
Very different genre-wise, I would say. But yeah, it was like No Hard Feelings. I was like, I thought it was really, really funny.
Mhm.
But then like the more that I think about it, I'm like, this is weird. A little bit, just a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
I
they acknowledge it.
yeah, I think that's what the driving force of comedy is their strange relationship. And I think a very important fact is that he was an adult. He is like 8 years younger than her, but I think he was 19 or something. So very important distinction in my mind
Hmm.
between May December and No Hard Feelings. But yeah, I think that the awkwardness and the unconventional nature of their relationship or lack thereof relationship is the driving force of the comedy in that movie. Okay, what's your number 6?
I picked A Man Called Otto, which is very different from No Hard Feelings. I don't know if you saw that one. It was
Mm-mm.
about this man who is like he's just retired. I don't know why. I don't know why I picked all movies about retired men. Um, Maybe it's just that's the dream. But basically he's like his wife has died of cancer like years ago. He lives in like this gated community thing, and it's like loosely gated. Like it's not like a like a wealthy thing. It's just like they have a gate and then people keep driving up to it, and he gets mad. He's like basically like the head of like HOA, and he's like super cranky. But he retires from his job and he decides that he's going to commit suicide. Um, but right when he decides that these neighbors move in from like across the street, and they start like like while he's like literally trying to hang himself, they're like knocking on his door because they like need a screwdriver and stuff. And they like, and like he is already, like stopped all of his power and turned off and like stopped paying his bills and stuff. And they like provide him with food and stuff. And like he becomes like part of their family. And it's like, I don't know,
Aw.
it's like kind of like It's a Wonderful Life feeling kind of film of like old man finds out that he's actually like welcome and should still be here. And I love the like grumpy man befriends a cat thing. I don't know. I love that. So I saw that one like early on, I think, in the year, and I did enjoy it. I think it's also a adaptation, so it's like Tom Hanks in the American version, but I think it was originally in like a different language or something. So I can't say necessarily if it's as good as that original version. I know that Maggie, who has been on our podcast, I believe really liked the original version. I just haven't seen that. Okay, are we
Nice.
ready to break into top five?
Yes. Top
Okay.
5 for me is, well, number 5 for me is going to be um Knock at the Cabin Door, which is M. Night Shyamalan's most recent release. And I will say this is maybe like an Asteroid City moment for me where it wasn't like my favorite when I first saw it. But it's wormed its way up into the top 5 for me. Number 1, because I'm an M. Night Shyamalan stan, and I love basically like everything that he directs and produces. And I think the only reason that this one was a little bit less on I was a little less enthusiastic about it originally is just because his release right before that, the year before, was Old, which I loved Old, and I need to watch it again. But in the theaters, it was just like such a grotesque like viewing, and he had all these like graphic images about, you know, what it means to age and age rapidly, and it becomes this like grotesque image for these people that are trapped on the beach. But it, you know, it's campy. All of his stuff is campy, but I do personally think that he writes really great twists, and he writes movies that I think about. So, you know, some people hate him, some people think that his work is like a little too silly, goofy, or too campy for them, but I personally eat it up. And so after seeing this one like a year or so later, it was a little bit of a letdown, but having thought about it more, I do think I really like it. And I need to watch it again as well, because it was a little, you know, it's like a religious allegory thing, which is like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, you know, come to someone in the Bible and say something and do something religious. I don't know. So I was a bit like out of my scope of knowledge. Not as relatable as some of the other things. You know, he has like common themes amongst all of his films, but I did really like the performances in this movie, and I definitely need to watch it again to get, I think, like a fuller understanding. But like I said, it's one that does like leave you thinking about things a lot. And I'm also someone that like loves to like put myself into like movies or TV series. Like I just love asking like theoretical questions. That's like my favorite pastime, is being like, who am I in this movie? Or like, what would I do in that situation? And I'm living with the wrong roommate because she absolutely cannot answer like a theoretical question to save her life. Like she can't do it. I'm like, oh, Megan, what would you do if it was like if your brother called you and needed you to, I don't know, bake a cake? And she's like, I cannot possibly imagine a situation where that would happen. So asking her about like, hey, what would you do if 4 people came up to the door and, you know, told you that you had to kill one of your family members in order to save the world? She can't answer that. But I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, you know, humans at their base level, we don't know what evil we're capable of. And I was like, I'd probably like not believe him, but then if, you know, worst came to worst, I'd stab a bitch, like mom or dad is going down. So yeah, it just left me thinking with a lot. I love theoretical questions, so M. Night really like sets me up for some interesting scenarios rattle around in my brain. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I recommend all of his movies.
I've never seen one, I don't think.
Oh my gosh, Signs is still like far and above my favorite. I do think that The Sixth Sense is his best one. Signs is my favorite just for like nostalgia factor. I watched it so much as a little kid. And then I think Old is his best, like more recent released. And then yeah, he has a couple I think that I still haven't seen. He has The Village, and then he has like the superhero ones, the like Man of Glass, Unbreakable or whatever. Those ones are not that good. I don't like those ones as much. Oh, but yeah, what about you for top 5? What's going to come in at number 5?
Number 5, I put Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
See, I still haven't seen it. Okay, here, wait. I'll say one thing is that I feel like the MCU has become so expansive into television show after television show after movie after movie. And one of the things that I always loved about them was how much they intertwined those things. And it was always so fun to see like a cameo in one TV series from like another, superhero. But I feel like they did so much that there is literally no way that I can catch up on every single bit of media that they have produced. And I really don't want to feel
work on it.
Yeah, I don't want to feel like I'm missing stuff. Like it's my biggest pet peeve when I go to watch a movie and I'm like, well, when the fuck did that happen? I'm like, what is that referencing?
Like, how are you supposed to watch a movie without Disney Plus? Which I think is like, I mean, it would be one thing if it was all about the movies, but I think they made so much of it based on their shows that are like only streaming. I wouldn't say Guardians of the Galaxy is super impacted by the shows, however. I would say that they're impacted by like some of the other movies, but not as much. And I think like the shows like I think WandaVision is very much entwined with like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But I think some of them you can definitely like see them separate. But anyway, I think this one was like entwined with like my personal viewing experience. I had been hired to teach, and the orientation was when my family was all going on like family vacation, and all I had were like my stuffed animals and I have a Rocket stuffed animal, and I watched this movie which is like all about Rocket's origin story and his like traumatic start. And so I'm like just sobbing because this Rocket stuffed animal is my lifeline. And I'm like, I didn't even know you went through this. So it was just traumatic. But I did think it was like really beautiful. Like, I don't know. I never thought we went super far into like Rocket Raccoon. And like, I don't even know if Rocket was like my favorite character of Guardians of the Galaxy, but then someone got me a Rocket Raccoon stuffed animal for a Secret Santa, and I was like, well, guess
this is my personality now.
And so I'm really glad that they went in, and now I'm very pro Rocket, regardless of the material items. Because he just had such a hard life, and he has like this like little voice that's kind of creepy in the beginning as he's a baby, but it's also like baby animals being tested on. It's just like scary.
I know. I don't think I can watch it. Like, number one is like the animal cruelty, and I will sob continuously. Like, I will actually have like a meltdown if it is something to do with an animal dying or being tortured. And there's also a rabbit. I've been told she's named like Flora because she like lays on the floor or something. Like, how?
No, she's just named Floor.
Okay, she's just named Floor
because so they all name themselves. So she says, so like I can't remember what one of them is named, but one of them is named Teeths because he has the biggest teeths and he can't say teeth. And then she was like, and I'm Floor because I'm laying on the floor. And
no,
then
that's so sad.
And then Rocket, like when he's like tested on, he gets to like look out of a window and he sees rockets. And so that's how he picks his name.
No, see, like I could cry right now. I cannot emotionally like handle that at this moment. So when I'm in a better headspace, but the second reason that I'm very hesitant to watch it, well, I guess the third, the one is I don't have enough info from all the other movies and shows. Two, animal cruelty makes me very sad. Three is that, isn't it like the end of like Gamora and what's the main character? What's
Peter
Chris Pratt?
Quill?
Yeah, Quill. And it's like,
I mean, that was more Endgame.
yeah, but like I thought I didn't like pick up on that in Endgame. I thought
The fact that she died.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna be okay. Like I thought she like came back or like I don't know.
Like a different timeline version that has no idea who he is.
Yeah,
so we're not okay, Brooke.
Yeah, but I just like don't want to see that. I don't like seeing like true love end, and I don't know. Okay, should I go to my number 4?
Sure.
Okay, my number 4 is the new Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I won't talk about too much since we just did a podcast on it a couple weeks back, but I really liked it. Marriya just saw it and she was not the biggest fan.
And I feel bad because I had a good theater experience because I got a cup and nachos, and that wasn't enough to save it for me. I just think that watching children kill other children doesn't hit as hard for me anymore as an adult.
I like just don't view cinema in that same way. Like I don't know. For me, it makes me emotional. I mean, like just like I said with like the animal cruelty stuff, but I think that I have a different perspective of it. I guess I
think it was more gruesome, I thought, than the original series. And I think as someone who doesn't do horror, I was like feeling a little squeamish watching it.
Yeah, maybe that's like a good distinction because I watch a lot of horror movies and grotesque never really bothers me. I get scared by like jump scares and everything like that, but I think that film is a medium that is meant to evoke emotions and reactions, and when a film makes me squeamish or makes me upset or whatever, I'm like, yeah, good job, right on you. You did what you were setting out to do. And I thought that the grotesque nature of this one compared to the other ones was very intentional and had like a very strong purpose in showing like how they were treated like absolute trash 75 or no 60 years before the next Hunger Games that we see in the original trilogy. And I understand that it's not going to be like everyone's cup of tea and that there are a ton of people that have issues with that, but I personally thought it was really intentional, and I really liked that we could see that transformation from the original trilogy to the just brutal nature of these games, and how you could see how much the Capitol was willing to go to any lengths to punish these kids from a war that happened within very recent memory. Like the people that are inflicting this pain are the people that lived through the pain of the war just 10 years before. And I think it has such a different dynamic than, a war that was fought 70 years before. And those people aren't really around anymore. They're very old. They're not the ones that are experiencing the or inflicting the pain directly anymore. So yeah, I thought it was very intentional. I really loved it. And again, it's not like a cinematic masterpiece, but it is one of my favorites, and I just really love the Hunger Games series, and I really love interesting world building and kind of apocalyptic stuff. It's my jam. We've already been over this. I love apocalyptic future dystopian landscapes. I like all that stuff. Okay, what was your number 4?
My number 4 was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I really enjoyed it. I thought like it's one that I'm gonna show my mom. I don't know. I thought it was very indicative, especially like obviously. And I love that actress. I thought she was really good in Ant-Man, which is one of my favorite Marvel films. So it was like nice to see her back up on the board because they've replaced that character so many times. And I think it was just like obviously like she is like a white little girl. And so like her differences are like very like religious or cultural. But I did feel like I could relate to it as like a mixed race, like one side is Indian, one side is white kind of scenario, in my personal life of like grandparents that don't really necessarily go together. And like fighting between those two sides. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought that the kid enraged me, that like little girl named Nancy Wheeler, who was her neighbor, and I think that the Nancy Wheeler from Stranger Things would shoot that Nancy Wheeler like
She'd get out the
100%.
baseball bat.
I do think, and I obviously I haven't read the book. The reason why it's not like higher up on my list was probably just because um I did feel like it was pretty split. Like I didn't think that the religion necessarily took like a B story kind of role, but it was introduced like so later on in the movie that it like felt like a B story, even though it wasn't ended up treated like that. So I felt like there was weird pacing overall. But I thought the performances were good, and it was definitely like an emotional thing. I definitely cried.
Mhm.
So let's move into top three.
Okay, my number three, I won't spend too much time on again because we did an entire podcast on it, but it was Quiz Lady, which honestly, just such a fun, well done comedy. I really liked this movie, and it's just like one of those things where um I was back home for Thanksgiving, and it was like, what are we going to show everyone in the family that like everyone will enjoy? And I was like, let's put on Quiz Lady. And again, like everyone loved it. I'd love to see new great comedies
Mhm.
on the horizon here. And we did a whole pod on it, but I really loved it. I thought the writing was really smart. I love the ending when we have just like flashes of everyone, and I thought the one-liners were very funny. As a side note, a story about that is we filmed the podcast, and I had the Benjamin Franklin in my background, and my roommate was doing interviews for residency. She's in med school. She was interviewing to get into these residency programs, and her laptop like crashed in the middle of one, and she had to come in and grab mine. And when she went on Zoom, she didn't know how to change a background and she didn't know that Ben Franklin would be there. So she turned it on, was scrambling to get back into this interview, and there was Ben Franklin in the background. And again, doesn't use Zoom often. She did not know how to change the virtual background. And so she had to rock with Ben Franklin in the background for the rest of her interviews.
Has she heard
So
back?
we don't know. We don't know if that one's gonna work out. But I just love to think
Make
of,
yourself memorable.
yeah, they will. They'll be like, okay, and what did we think of Ben Franklin lady? But I also like how the story is more complicated in that like she's did half of the interviews with her laptop, no Ben Franklin, and then
She was like,
came
let's
back.
bring out the big guns.
Yeah, and then came back with Ben Franklin. So it was like the pre and post Ben Franklin era for her.
Mhm.
Because they do these interviews for like 8 hours. Like it's
Oh,
a
dang.
long session. So yeah, they were like, man, I wasn't really like connecting with her that much, but when she came back from the break with Ben Franklin, I was like, that right there is a winner.
I think
um
it would make more sense if it was like a picture of Ben Franklin, but it's also like a guy
it's a
pretending to be
guy.
Ben Franklin.
Yeah, it's just a guy in a hotel lobby. So, oh, my poor roommate. But yeah, what's your number three?
My number three was The Crowded Room, which was the limited series on Apple TV with Tom Holland, um, which was I mean, it's kind of like the true crime because it's based on like a real guy who I think was the first ever case to like plead insanity for like multiple personality disorder. Um, and I just thought like the acting was really nice in that. Like I thought Tom Holland did a really nice job of like switching between roles and making those changes. And I thought it was interesting how it all came together. So I think that was one of my biggest like acting performances of the year, in my opinion. And I thought Amanda Seyfried was also really good as like the psychologist in this as well. Yeah, I really liked it. Apple TV for some reason just hit out like banger after banger this year. I don't know what it is, but I really like Apple TV. Am I an Apple TV? Is that my like streaming service of choice now? I don't know. I don't want to be that person, but
Yeah, see, I feel like Apple TV people are specific people because I don't have an Apple TV subscription, so I'm missing out. But they
sorry.
am I lesser then? um
I wouldn't say that,
but yeah. I think I had it at one point because I like bought a new computer and then I got it
and
for
your
like
parents
free.
watched Ted Lasso, didn't they?
They do. Yeah, I'm sure I could maybe get their login info. Can you get it
Yeah.
on Roku? Can you put Apple?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll look into this further. Okay, my
It actually turns out Brooke does have Apple TV.
I may have it. I may just not know. But that's like a whole other like can of worms for things that I should be watching that I don't have time. Okay, my next one is number 2, Asteroid City, which we talked about. We did a whole pod on. I think I was enthusiastic about it when we watched it. You were not enthusiastic, and like Marya said, she was like, "Oh yeah, I took some time," and then compared to all the other shit movies I watched this year, it was great.
Okay, paraphrased.
Lightly paraphrased. Citation needed. But yeah, I thought that was funny because she was like, Asteroid City's in my top, and I was like, what? You hated this one, but I like you said, like I feel like this was far and above my favorite Wes Anderson. I've only seen a handful of his movies.
Mhm.
But honestly, this is kind of the spark for me to get back into it more. I feel like I understand him more as, like you said, kind of Wes Anderson explaining why he makes the kind of movies that he makes. So I thought it was beautiful. Again, he is such a visually appealing director. I feel like no one's doing it like him. I
Mhm.
love someone that has such a like distinct style. And I think that Asteroid City just had so many beautiful shots. And when you're, kind of working with that like static camera, he very much is kind of trying to do like a 2-dimensional feel with a 3-dimensional medium. He has to think like very intentionally about like the mise en scène that he has, how the characters are moving through the space, everything that you see in front of the camera. That's what mise en scène is. It's like everything that you see in
Say
front
it
of the
again.
mise en scène.
Oh.
And the props, the stage, everything. And I think when you have to think very intentionally about those things, you're creating like really interesting stuff to look at.
Mhm.
When you're relying less on camera movement and editing and like CGI and all that stuff. So yeah, Asteroid City, I may also now be a Wes Anderson girly, and I want to explore more of his work now going forward. What's your number
Nice.
2?
I said Missing, the
Yeah.
Netflix original, which is a silly one to pick for number 2, but it's mainly for my boy Javi. We've talked about Missing on the show before. It's about like this mom that goes missing and she has to use her Mac to find her mom. Um, I don't know. I just thought it was really cool to see that play out. I don't know. I remember like watching like Modern Family, and like my favorite Modern Family episode is the one where they like use their Mac to talk to everyone. I don't know. I just think that's so cool. And maybe that's just because I don't have a Mac. And maybe this is like a little tutorial for me.
I like how like are you trying to get like an Apple deal? Because you're like, Apple TV is my favorite. You know
Well,
what
they
I really
I
use?
maybe. I also appreciated that we did post about that movie and the writers did like our videos on Twitter. So, we love them and I would love a map delivered to my home address, which is but I don't know, I just thought it was really fun, and after I saw it, I told every single person I knew about it, and I watched it like 5 times with each individual person. Because I watched it I watched it once and then I was like, I told you about it. And then you were like, let's watch it later today. And then I was like, wait, is it really that good? So then I watched it again. And I was like, okay, we can show this. And then I watched it again with you. And then I showed my parents and I watched it with them. And then my sister wasn't there. And I was like, well, we're going to be talking about missing for the rest of the year. So you need to see this so that you can get caught up. So then I watched it with her.
I absolutely love the anxiety of not knowing if what you were about to watch with me was absolute crap. So you were like, wait, let me
Let's do it
verify.
again.
Oh my God, yeah. Missing was almost my number 10, but then got bumped out by May, December. And honestly, I don't know if it should become number
No,
10
you don't have to
instead.
say that just because of my anxiety.
No, it was really good. I said at the time too, it was, I will say that the genre of having everything be like almost 98% of the movie was on the screen and was like
Well,
the
you have a
FaceTime
Mac.
videos. I do have a Mac. I've lived this experience.
Like, no
Um
one's gonna watch my ThinkPad movie.
you use the little like circular
Yeah.
mouse in the center. Yeah, I will say that genre is not my favorite, but that this was my absolute favorite of that genre. I thought it was really well done compared to other ones that I've seen. And I love a true crime kind of thing, and it had really good twists too. So yeah, it is a good one. Is it on, it's on Netflix? Yeah, another
Streaming
good
on
one
Netflix.
on Netflix that you guys should check out. Okay, getting into the number one here. So my number one, as we said, was Barbie. And I missed out on joining for the Barbie pod, which I will forever regret, but my roommate was dying in the hospital. So, good reason to skip a pod. But I need to watch it again, and it just went on to Max, HBO Max. So for streaming, I think like within the
I did
last
like it
week.
better when I saw it a second time, and since you already liked it the first time, I'll be interested in seeing what you think.
Yeah, I definitely need to rewatch it because I only saw it the one time in theaters, and I saw it with my parents, and it was funny to get their reactions to it too. And I see all sorts of discourse online, people that had like similar criticisms to you, Marriya, where they said that it didn't make sense, or that they thought it was very Ken focused and not Barbie focused enough. And then I see so many people saying the exact opposite criticism, which was that it was way too Barbie focused, that Ken was like mistreated, and that it's a misogynistic movie. I don't see that. I don't see like either of those criticisms being valid for my one-time watch, and this was now months and months ago. But when people say that, like, they thought it was more Ken focused and that Barbie didn't have as much of a character development as him, I don't see that. Like, I felt like Barbie went through an extreme like character development and emotional transformation. And I honestly see Ken as, if anything, like being a little bit more static in
But
his
did
character
Ken need like
development.
3 whole musical numbers? Like
I
Rachel Zegler, at least she was the star of the movie of the Ballad
Yeah.
of Songbirds and Snakes. He just like kept singing. And I felt like we didn't get to see Barbie as much in like her happily ever after or whatever, or like seeing her make those changes. Like we saw her sad a lot, and then we actually got like an actual moment with Ken. I don't know. I just thought he became more of a gimmick to me and more of like a, ah, there's Ken again.
Yeah, but I think that having Ken be a little bit more one-dimensional and be a gimmick is what they were kind of going for, because I kind of want Ken to be a I want him to be a Ken. I want him to be this character who is taken less seriously, and is kind of, even though he has more musical numbers, I feel like he is still the Ken to Barbie's Ken. And I think that again, I need to rewatch it, but just from what I saw, I think it's okay if Barbie was sad a lot of the time. And I don't think that we have to have like happy characters to
Mm.
like them
Well,
or
I just felt
to
like we saw more of Ken's transformation in the end, and we I don't know, maybe there's going to be like a Barbie 2 where we get to see Barbie in the real world, but I felt like we saw more of like the after effects of Ken's transformation versus Barbie where we just get like that little like I want to make an appointment.
yeah.
And I would have liked to see it more Barbie centered.
For Ken's transformation in the end, can you remind me of like what we see?
Well,
Because
he has like that whole like monologue kind of thing or like a realization and he ends up like shedding that jacket or whatever and all of that stuff. And I felt like he came back in the end. And then I think Barbie's kind of more left ambiguous and like I think that's fine. Like she's like she doesn't really know what she's doing yet. But I would have liked to see us linger a little bit more with her or like seen how I mean I think she realizes in her like speech to Ken that she's like not just Barbie. But I think we spend so much of our time like focused on like getting her life back that it was like harder to see that transition happen between like um I want to be the perfect Barbie to I just want to be human. I thought that transition was a little bit harder to see versus like Ken doesn't have to be Barbie's Ken.
hmm Yeah, and I still think, yeah, that's totally valid, but I think that I was like picking up on um more stuff throughout the because she is like making that decision between I want to go to the real world, then she goes to the real world, realizes that it's horrible, just wants to escape back to Barbie Land, and then
Hmm.
Barbie Land has become Ken World or whatever. And I think that I am seeing, the hints throughout, and I think a moment that like points to that is like when she's on the like bench and sees an old woman and like starts
Mm-hmm.
crying and says that she's beautiful, and I think all of those are building up to her making this ultimate decision. And I think that it is important that like Ken, he does like remain in Barbie world, right? Even though he
Hmm.
realizes that he can be his own person, that his entire personality has been developed off of, making sure that he is like a good Ken, a good man, and all that. He needs to shed away that stuff. But I think that it's a very important distinction that like Ken remains in Ken world and that Barbie does get to be a
That's true.
fully self-actualized human woman. And I don't necessarily think that it takes away from her journey that we don't get to see the after effects of that, because I think Barbie has learned all of these lessons about what it is to be human from the other characters, and that really like what the pivotal transformation for her is not necessarily the after, but it is the decision to enter that like liminal white space to become the human. And I think that what I like gained from that, there are so many layers of takeaways that you could have from this movie, and themes that are, interplaying throughout. And there's like a feminist take that is very easy to see with what's her name, America Ferrera, her character. And I can't remember the character's name, but she gives like the feminine speech. There's obviously this like feminist edge to all of this, but I thought it also was showing the both sides of the detrimental nature of extreme feminism and extreme misogyny. And
Hmm.
I thought that it was the most important thing that I gleaned from it, and what made me most emotional like was that decision that Barbie, after learning all of these things. And I think it's still important and still favors Barbie's transformations over Ken, that Ken is now just becoming a better Ken and Barbie is becoming a human. And
Hmm.
that when we're in that liminal space, we get like the montage of all the like women and families growing up, and I just thought it was like a beautiful picture of like what it means to be human. And I've taken a lot of philosophy classes, and it's a different question of what it means to be human versus what it is to be like a woman. And I think that what I gained from it was that what it is to be human is to choose to have a life. Like if we're thinking about it from, themes of like depression or anxiety or struggling with something that may want you to may make you want to not live anymore, that it is a beautiful thing to choose life, to choose to be human, even though you know that it comes with a perfection that can only be achieved in a world like Barbie land.
But there's a distinction between choose life and being pro-life. I just
Yeah.
want to make that distinction.
No. We are pro Barbie being able to choose that she has a vagina. Let's make that perfectly clear. But yeah, so I didn't necessarily see didn't necessarily see anything too wrong with that, but I only saw it one time in theaters like many months back, so I'm interested to see if I'll gain anything else from a second watch through. And I did think that it was a stellar performance by Ryan Gosling, which I think his exceptional performance is why a lot of people are thinking more about like how necessary it was to have Ken be so prominently featured and be so charismatic, but I didn't see too many issues with it. But yeah, what's your number one?
I chose Lessons in Chemistry. Apple TV would love some free merch. Would love a Mac. Would love whatever you're willing. Send me an email, marriyaschwarz@gmail.com. Lessons in Chemistry, which I've talked about like briefly before, but it's about this woman who was in a PhD program to get her like PhD in chemistry, but then she was sexually assaulted, and blamed for her own assault, so she had to like drop out of her PhD program, and so she only has a master's in chemistry, and no one treats her like a chemist, so she has to be like an aide. Um, and then she like meets this guy who like finally takes her seriously, and then something happens, and all of their work ends up being stolen, and she has to raise their daughter alone, and she can't really find work as a chemist, so then she takes on this job as being like this talk show host for a show called Supper at Six, and the people just want her to be like a pretty face, but she ends up like teaching women about like cooking and chemistry and like how to be empowering and stuff like that. And I just thought it was really beautiful. It is pretty fast, like her entire life just like switches in like the second episode or something. So it is like pretty fast,
Oh,
and
is it
like
a mini series?
it's a mini series, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
like I don't even know how many episodes. It's like 6, 8 episodes, and it like covers like years and years of her life. Um, so it goes fast. There's also a whole episode that's like narrated by a dog, because she finds a dog and she names him 630. And he like blames himself for like this traumatic death, and he has like this really like so it's like retired men and sad animals were my top 2023. But I thought it was a really beautiful TV series. In the end though, it's like her happily ever after is being a professor, and I do have issues with that, but I feel like whenever they have like an academic, they're like the ending is that they finally get a place in the classroom, and it's like a happily ever after for freshmen being forced to take your class because that's what fits best in their schedule and it's a prerequisite is not anyone's happily ever after. Really quick, did you want to go through your worst?
I only have like two, one of which was Your Place or Mine, which was a rom-com that just absolutely failed me. It wasn't even like bad in a funny way, and we did a whole episode on that. So that one was horrible. And then another letdown was The Exorcist Believer. It was this big hype and
I
a
think
lot.
that was the one that was pushed out by
Yeah.
Taylor Swift.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say was oh, okay. So Exorcist Believer was forced to move, and they were the ones that were pushing out a bunch of like ads to people who on TikTok who like don't watch horror movies. So like when you open up the app, it would be like a thing that you had to watch for like, 3 seconds. And a lot of people who were not horror aficionados were like upset by this and were like, this
The
is
lady who
disgusting.
hosts my local radio station, she was like, I had to buy a Hulu Premium because I couldn't sit through the ad.
Yeah. It was a lot of backlash for that. But my roommate and
Wash
I
FM 97.1, send us merch.
but my roommate was really looking forward to it, and I watched the original Exorcist, which was interesting. It's I think like a film from the 70s.
And those
And
steps are in Washington, D.C.
yes, that's what I was thinking of, because in the class that we took together, they mentioned that those steps were there. So that's like all I was thinking about during the film. But so I watched.
You were only thinking about steps.
I
How
quite
bad was the
literally.
movie?
I was thinking about steps like 50% of the time. Like there would be dialogue on screen, and like all I was like thinking about was like, oh, those steps are in Washington, D.C. Like I'm not even kidding. It occupied a lot of my mental space. But yeah, it was just such a letdown. It was so weird. It had a lot of potential. It was like a double exorcism. They were like, ooh, not one but two little girls this time.
Ooh.
And they brought back
Were they twins?
no,
Oh
they're
man.
they were just friends. And
Ah, friends.
it didn't even go into like what they did to get possessed by the demon, which is like I think one of the most interesting parts of the film is like of a horror film, where they go into like, oh, they touched the magic blah blah blah, and now
The magic steps in Washington, D.C.
they went up the magic steps, and now they must pay the price. But it was just really weird. It had so much potential in like the first 30 minutes, and then it just crashed and burned after that. And they brought in the original actress back, and then like promptly like gouged her eyes out and like killed her. And
Oh no.
that was strange. And it was just such a letdown. We were like highly anticipating this like sequel for quite a while, and then just was not good. So did not like that. And then I'll give a shout out to a couple of non 2023 movies that occupied a lot of my watching time. I've talked about it again and again, but Vampire Diaries, so good. I'm in the fifth season now, and it's dwindling a little bit in storytelling excellence, but the first seasons 1 through 3 of Vampire Diaries were amazing, and I do still think they're really good at writing twists and turns. So that I really liked. Hocus Pocus 2 was a first time watch for me, and honestly loved it. I'm not like ever the biggest fan of sequels, especially ones that happen like 20 years apart, but I thought it was well done and was adorable. And then another series that the biggest thing that happened to it in 2023 was that Netflix decided to not renew it, is the what is it, 1899, which is like, I feel like Netflix went through, or no, is it? Yeah, 1899. Netflix went through a period of time where they were producing a lot of like original spooky or just weird sci-fi series. And I loved this one, and I'm so sad that they're not renewing it. I think another Netflix one from like years back, which was along the sci-fi line, was The OA, which was another great show. And that one did get 2 seasons, but ended after that. And I really liked 1899. Just really weird, lots of sci-fi, interesting things to think about. And it was not brought back. So that is sad. But those were a couple of my favorite first-time watches for this year. What were your worst?
My worst, number 5, I said Somebody I Used to Know, which was I can't even remember who it was. It was very like hyped up because it was the directorial. I don't know if it was, remember if it was his debut. But what's his name? Dave Franco. It was like his movie with his wife, and which I feel like it's negating, it's like lowering her to call her his wife. But I can't remember her name right this very moment. But I thought it was really bad, and it was like she was risking her whole entire life for this guy who didn't have any any personality, and it was like all about like she's like a reality TV producer, and she goes back like randomly to like her high school sweetheart is getting married, and suddenly she decides that she's just gonna steal him, and he has no personality, and he's also a terrible person, and she's a terrible person. And it was just like not fun to watch. For I said Velma, because like it there were funny bits, but it just like was so I don't know. It's like and I love Mindy Kaling, and I love like her books, and like her autobiographies are great, but I felt like a lot of it was really like anti people of color, anti like people of various body types. Like I know that it was like Velma is like inclusive because she's like an Indian woman, but so much of it was like I'm Velma and I suck because I'm Indian and and it was just like after a while it just got tiring where it was like why is this a punchline? It should have just been like that's just what she is. And it was just like not I don't know, I feel like an old like millennial where I'm like not my Scooby-Doo, but it was like it it wasn't even like close to what Scooby-Doo like stands for. I don't know. And so I was like, why couldn't this have just been like any other show? Because it just like ruined all the other characters. But three, Spy Kids Armageddon. I saw what they were going for, but it just wasn't an enjoyable watch for me, probably because it wasn't for me. But it was just like very much trying to do the first movie and the third movie all at once, and it just like wasn't super memorable for me. The Outlaws, I don't even remember this one all that much, but I remembered I had a terrible time. It was like what's that guy? Um, the guy who plays the asshole guy in Pitch Perfect, like the guy who's like the head of the male a cappella group.
Mm-hmm.
Who I don't know, he always plays like either like the really nice guy or like the asshole, and he played like the really nice guy who was like trying to be good to like his in-laws or something. Um, and then they like ended up robbing the bank that he works at or something. I don't know. It was just like really dumb and stupid and not a good like rom-com kind of thing. And then number one was Invitation to a Murder because it was like trying to be Agatha Christie, but then the entire murder was solved by like a ring cam, which like she would be rolling over in her grave, and it was just awful. All of the accent work was bad. I don't even know what I don't think I was supposed to watch it. Because I thought it was when I started watching it, I was like, oh, this is the new Agatha Christie movie, and I thought it was gonna be like the new Poirot Haunting in Venice, which I did see as well. And it wasn't great. But that's what I thought this one was. So I think I also had lower expectations, and I have no idea what even company did this. I don't even think it was like a big one. I think I wasn't supposed to watch this movie. And I found it on like it wasn't like an illegal streaming service, but I saw it on like Tubi or something. Like it wasn't like other if I didn't think it was something else, I wouldn't have like sought it out.
Like, this is so low budget.
Yeah.
You're like, what happened?
It was really bad. I didn't know any of the actors. So that one wasn't great.
Did you have anything that you've been watching recently?
Yes. I saw Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So we've already talked about that, but I will say I looked into Kathy Bates, who plays the grandmother in this, and she's played a lot of other things. But did you know that her grandfather became famous about his like conspiracy theory about John Wilkes Booth, that they never caught him and he lived a whole life under another name? Um, like he lived under the name John St. Helen and David E. George.
Hmm.
Um, so that's an interesting thing. Um, I watched Joyride, which I think I wanted it to be one of my top 10 because I think it is indicative of like the fact that this was Ashley Park's year. That girl was just like in everything. She was in every ad. So good for her. It just like wasn't my personal like brand of like comedy. It was very much like vagina humor, which like isn't my thing. But they did have this character named Deadeye, who is like this socially awkward teenager that is like with these adult women, and they're like super into BTS, and they have like this really like cute like loyal arc, and it's like actually really sweet. It's like one of the best characters I've seen in like the last 5 years, and it made me
Oh,
cry. And that one's like a road trip kind of movie, which I know you love road trip movies, like you love the college road trip. Um,
favorite movie.
and then I watched The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which wasn't my favorite. I think it just like I saw a like letterbox comment that was like this needed to be a part one, part two movie, and I agree with that. I felt like we just moved, we never had chance to like linger on any scene necessarily. I'm also seeing that like people had a shower scene, and I did not have that shower scene. And it's not like I don't think it would have made it or made or break my viewing experience, but I thought that was interesting, and I just saw that while you were changing clothes. Um, and so I thought I would add that. But it wasn't my favorite thing. And I think when we're thinking about like, it was marketed as the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but I didn't feel like they did a really good job of setting up like how it connects to the original trilogy, which I think was really needed. Um, because in the book they go through all this thing, and that's like the only thing I knew like going into it. I had read the first chapter, which the first chapter very much very accurate to the movie. It's just tigers trying to get him a shirt, and they did a really good job. I read that part in a parking lot. And but it just like it didn't explain like I watched your podcast because I watch the things that I'm not in. And you all had mentioned that like you didn't know who Lucy Gray was, and like the
Mhm.
whole thing is because they had wiped all of the like footage from that year, um and so like it was like a big cover up, and I didn't feel like they explained that at all, that like no one knew about the Hunger Games 10 or like. And I think seeing like the Hunger Games that we saw, it was like hard to see why this one was like something that they would cover up. And I didn't feel like they explained that well. And then I saw Rye Lane, which is like a British rom-com, which randomly has Colin Firth, who works at like a burrito place as like a cameo. But I thought it was cute. It was like a two exes, or like not exes, but like two people who are like getting over a breakup, meet and then spend all day together, like getting back at their exes and stuff. And I thought it was cute. What about you? What have you been watching?
I've been watching basically only Christmas movies. So a new one that I saw was Candy Cane Lane with Eddie Murphy. It was okay. It was cute for what it was. I think it was like a Prime original or something.
Hmm.
And it had um basically like an evil elf who tricks them into buying this like 12 Days of Christmas like decoration set. And once they have it, it like starts to like cause what mayhem.
It's just the dumbest
Yeah.
premise I've ever heard.
And all of this is like because they live on like a street where everyone like decks out their Christmas decorations, and this year there's like $100,000 prize. And so Eddie Murphy's character gets like laid off, and then he's like, I'm gonna save Christmas by like winning $100,000. So he's trying to like really go out on his decorations. So he gets this 12 Days of Christmas thing, and he then has to like battle like all of these like it's so silly explaining it. He has to battle like all of the birds that are in this song, and the drummers drumming, and they all like do crazy things to him. And then the evil elf like tricked him, and if he doesn't recapture all of the 12 Days of Christmas figures by like 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve, then he gets turned into like a little statue that gets put in her like Christmas village. So it's crazy. I will say that Eddie Murphy has like played a dad of young kids for the last 25 years of his career. Like, how has he, it's like,
Doesn't he have so many kids as well?
I have no idea, but he is like 62 years old, and I feel like he has felt like a 62-year-old.
Why isn't he put into like the Melissa Joan Hart grandmother
Grandma
level?
category. I don't know. He still looks good. He looks younger than his age, but it's just like one of those people where I feel like I grew up with him already
Yeah, he has
playing.
10 children.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like I grew up with him already playing like dad figures when I was like a 5-year-old, and now 20 years later, he's still playing dad of like young kids or like kids my age or younger. So I'm like, wow, he's been in this dad mode for quite a while. We'll see when the Melissa Joan Hart grandma transition happens. But yeah, so I saw Candy Cane Lane, and then I saw two of our must-watch holiday movies with my parents, which is Christmas with the Kranks, which we love. And it's about like an only child daughter who like comes home for Christmas, so it's like very near and dear to our hearts, and we can relate to it. And then the Polar Express I watched last night, which some people hate it. They hate the creepy animation, but I am a Polar Express stan and I love it.
I liked
And
what you tweeted.
I was just gonna say, I did tweet like, do you think they like have any other trains that kidnap kids for the holidays? Like, is there like a Bunny Express that just
In Halloween Town, they have a bus.
They do have a bus, but it wasn't explicitly meant to kidnap children. They did kind of take it over for the public transportation, but yeah, that's all I've been watching. Where can they find you and the pod, Marriya?
They can find me at Marriya Schwarz on all social media. My computer is dying, which maybe wouldn't happen if I had a Mac. So if you want to reach out to me at Marriya Schwarz on all social media accounts and send me a Mac, that would work for me. You could, if you can't find me there because it's hard to spell, you can find the pod at Remake Hot Take and just say this is for Marriya. If you don't know how to spell my name, you can just say this is for Girl in Scarf, and Girl in Scarf will get the Mac, and that will work for me. Brooke, where can they find you? Do you want a Mac as well? Please specify.
I'm okay. I think I got
Okay.
this one like 3 years ago, but I don't use it for anything other than recording the podcast and then editing the podcast. So it's still like going strong. So I think I'm okay. But you know, if you have a spare one, actually, you know what? You can give me an Apple TV subscription because I may or may not have one. And they can find me at B_Reesecup on Instagram. And that'll do it for us. Thanks so much for a great year of us pretty regularly uploading for this podcast and for viewers like you. Thank you.
PBS.
No.
They give us no money.
Well, for viewers like you, thank you for leaving hate comments on our TikTok.
That's more accurate.
It really helps the algorithm. But yeah, Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2024.
Bye.